My mom found out my income, so she showed up with my spoiled brother and demanded I give her my down payment for a house. Can you believe a mother could look her own child in the eye, knowing they've worked their fingers to the bone, saved every penny, and finally reached a major life milestone, and still demand they hand over everything they've built? That's exactly what happened to me. My own mother, with my perpetually spoiled brother in tow, showed up at my doorstep, not to congratulate me, not to celebrate, but to demand I give her the entire down payment I had saved for my first house. Was I wrong for refusing? For telling her exactly what I thought of her and my brother? Honestly, tell me if you would have done the same thing. You see, my life has never been easy, not in the way my brother's was. From a young age, it was clear there were two different rule books in our household. I was the responsible one, the quiet one, the one who was expected to achieve, to perform, to somehow compensate for my brother, Mark, who was the golden child, the charming rogue, the one who could do no wrong in our mother's eyes. Mark was a year older than me, and from the moment he could speak, he had my mother wrapped around his little finger. If he wanted a toy, he got it. If he wanted to skip chores, he skipped them. If he failed a class, it was the teacher's fault, never his. I, on the other hand, was taught early on that if I wanted something, I had to earn it. I got my first job at 16, working after school and on weekends, saving up for college, for a car, for anything that would give me a sliver of independence. My mother always said it was building character, and I believed her for a long time. I believed that one day, my hard work would pay off, and she would finally see me, truly see me, and appreciate the effort I put in. College was a struggle, as it is for many, but I managed to get a partial scholarship and worked 2 part-time jobs to cover the rest of my tuition and living expenses. Mark, meanwhile, coasted through a degree at a local university paid for entirely by my parents, taking 5 years to complete a 4-year program, switching majors 3 times, and racking up a good amount of credit card debt on top of it. He never had to worry about rent, never had to worry about food, never had to worry about a bill. Everything was handled. My mother would often call me during this time, not to check in on my studies, but to relay Mark's latest adventure or struggle, subtly hinting that I should be more understanding, more supportive of my brother. It always felt like a subtle manipulation, a suggestion that I, the self-sufficient one, should be doing more for the one who refused to be self-sufficient. After college, I landed a good job in a competitive field. It was an overnight success, mind you. I started at the bottom, working incredibly long hours, making sacrifices, and pushing myself constantly. I lived frugally, drove an old car, and packed my lunches every day. My goal was simple: to save enough for a down payment on a house. I dreamed of having a place of my own, a sanctuary where I could finally feel truly independent, away from the lingering shadow of my brother's entitlement and my mother's enabling. I rarely talked about my financial situation with my family. It wasn't out of secrecy, but because I knew how my mother operated. Any hint of financial success on my part was usually met with a request, a subtle nudge to help Mark out of his latest predicament. He was always in a predicament. He'd lost another job, couldn't pay his rent, needed a new car, had a fantastic business idea that just needed a little capital to get off the ground. These requests were always framed as family helping family, but it was always one-sided. It was always me helping Mark. I helped him out a few times in the early days, loaning him money that I knew I'd never see again, but eventually I had to put my foot down. I realized I was just perpetuating the cycle, and my own future was at stake. So I learned to keep my head down and my achievements to myself. My current job is a good one. I've been there for several years, working my way up, getting promotions, and thankfully a very decent salary. I'm not rich by any stretch, but I'm comfortable, and I've managed to save a substantial amount for that down payment. I was so close, so incredibly close. I've been pre-approved for a mortgage, and I was actively looking at houses, picturing myself finally having a place to call my own. It felt like a lifetime of hard work was finally paying off. I had shared my excitement with a couple of trusted friends, but I had explicitly avoided telling my family. I knew it would open a Pandora's box I wasn't ready for. But secrets, especially financial ones, have a way of getting out. The catalyst for all of this, as it often is, was a seemingly innocent conversation. My aunt, a well-meaning but incredibly gossipy woman, had seen my car. I finally upgraded to a decent, but not flashy, sedan, and, being a distant acquaintance of someone I work with, managed to piece together some information about my company and my role. She cornered me at a family gathering and, with a sly smile, commented on how well I must be doing. I tried to deflect, to be vague, but she was persistent. She kept asking leading questions about my salary range, about the bonuses I might be getting, about whether I was looking to settle down now that I was so established. I gave her some non-committal answers, thinking I had dodged a bullet. I was wrong. The next day, my phone rang and it was my mother. Her tone was different. It wasn't the usual, mildly concerned check-in. It was sharper, almost accusatory. She started asking about my job, about my fancy new car, about how I could afford such things. It was clear Aunt Carol had spilled the beans, and probably embellished a little. I tried to downplay it, saying things were okay, but not fantastic. But it was too late. The seed had been planted. A few weeks later, the call came. It was Mark, sounding distressed as usual. He had gotten himself into another situation. He'd lost his apartment, apparently after a string of bad choices and unpaid rent. He was now staying with a friend, but needed a more permanent solution. My mother, of course, was beside herself. She called me, lamenting about her poor son, how he was struggling, how life was so unfair to him. She then pivoted, very smoothly, to how well I was doing, how stable I was, how blessed I was. And then came the request. Mark needed a place to stay. He could stay with me for a little while, just until he got back on his feet. I immediately said no. I explained that my apartment was small, I valued my privacy, and frankly, I knew a little while with Mark meant indefinitely. I also explained that I was actively looking for a house, and having him move in would complicate things immensely. My refusal did not go over well. My mother exploded, accusing me of being selfish, of not caring about my own brother, of forgetting where I came from. She reminded me of all the sacrifices she had made for me, sacrifices which, in my memory, were mostly geared towards Mark's welfare. I held my ground, and the conversation ended with her hanging up on me. I thought that was the end of it. I really did. I figured she would eventually cool off, and Mark would figure something out, as he always eventually did when he exhausted all other options. But I underestimated my mother's determination and her capacity for entitlement. A few days later, I was at work, engrossed in a project, when my phone rang again. It was my building security. They told me I had 2 visitors waiting in the lobby, my mother and my brother. My heart sank. I knew this wasn't going to be good. I went downstairs, trying to keep a calm exterior, but inside I was seething. They were standing there, Mark looking sheepish but with an expectant glint in his eye, and my mother, her face set in a stern, almost righteous expression. She didn't even say hello. She just launched into it, right there in the lobby. "We need to talk," she said, her voice low but firm, attracting the attention of a few other residents walking by. "We know you're buying a house." My blood ran cold. How did she know? I hadn't told anyone in the family. Then it hit me. Aunt Carol must have gone into full detective mode after my initial conversation, probably making more calls, extracting more information, and then gleefully relaying it all to my mother. My mother continued, "And we know you have a substantial down payment saved up." She paused, letting that sink in. "Mark is in a desperate situation. He needs this more than you do right now." So that's the situation I was in, standing there in my building's lobby, my mother essentially performing an intervention to demand my hard-earned savings. I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have caved? Would you have sacrificed your future for a brother who never lifted a finger? What would your response have been? I looked at her, then at Mark, who was now avoiding my gaze, fiddling with his phone. The anger and frustration that had been simmering for years, decades even, finally boiled over. "Are you serious?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. You really think you can just show up here and demand I hand over the money I've worked my entire life for to give to Mark, who has never worked for anything in his life? My mother's face hardened. He's your brother. Family helps family. You're doing so well, you can just save up again. He needs a fresh start, and this is your chance to help him. Mark finally piped up, yeah, I could really turn things around with that money. I have a great business idea. Just need some capital. That was it. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. A business idea? I scoffed. You've had 100 business ideas, Mark, and every single one of them ended up with you losing money, usually someone else's. And Mom, I turned my gaze back to her. You enabled him every single step of the way. You let him get away with everything. You gave him everything he wanted, while I had to fight for every single thing I have. This down payment? This isn't just money. This is years of sacrifice, years of saying no to myself, years of working myself ragged. This is my future. This is my independence. And you want me to just hand it over to him because he's what? Struggling again? Because he made bad choices? Because you never taught him the value of hard work. My mother's face was a mask of shock and outrage. No one, especially not me, had ever spoken to her like that. How dare you speak to your mother like that, she hissed, her voice rising. You are being completely selfish, ungrateful. After everything I've done for you, everything you've done for me? I echoed, a bitter laugh escaping me. What exactly have you done for me, Mom, that wasn't overshadowed by your constant favoritism towards Mark? You taught me to be independent because you were too busy doting on him. You taught me to save because you were always bailing him out. You made me strong because you never gave me a choice but to be strong. And now you expect me to give up the fruits of that strength, that independence, that hard work, for him? No, absolutely not. I stepped closer to them, my voice firm and unwavering. This money is mine. It's for my house. Mark needs to learn to stand on his own 2 feet, and you need to stop enabling him. I am not giving you, or him, a single penny of my down payment. If Mark is truly desperate, there are resources. There are jobs. He needs to take responsibility for his own life. And Mom, you need to let him. This ends now. The silence that followed was deafening. Mark looked genuinely stunned, perhaps realizing for the first time that his usual tactics weren't going to work. My mother, however, was incandescent with rage. Her face was flushed, and her eyes narrowed. You'll regret this, she said, her voice trembling with fury. You'll regret turning your back on your family. No, I countered, looking her directly in the eye. I think I'll regret it if I didn't stand up for myself for once. And frankly, I'm already regretting not doing it sooner. I turned around and walked away, leaving them standing there in the lobby. I went back upstairs, my hands shaking, but also with a strange sense of liberation. It was the hardest thing I had ever done, but it felt right. The aftermath wasn't pretty. For weeks, my mother didn't speak to me. She called other family members, spinning a tale of my supposed selfishness and cruelty. Some family members, those who had always been privy to Mark's exploits and my mother's enabling, quietly reached out to me, offering their support and understanding. Others, those who only heard my mother's version, judged me harshly. Mark, surprisingly, went quiet for a while. I heard through the grapevine that he eventually found a temporary job and a new place to stay, albeit a much less desirable one than he had hoped. He didn't get my money and he didn't get to live with me. The relationship with my mother is still strained. We exchange polite, superficial messages on holidays, but the warmth, if it ever truly existed in the way I longed for, is gone. I still love her, in a way, but I also see her for who she is, and I understand that her priorities were never truly about my well-being. It was about her perception of her family, and ensuring her golden child never truly had to face the consequences of his actions. I did buy my house a few months later. It's not a mansion, but it's mine. Every brick, every window, every corner represents the years of effort I poured into it, and a huge part of that effort was also standing up for myself against the very people who were supposed to support me. It's a physical manifestation of my independence, and I cherish it more than words can say. So, that's my story. It's a messy one, full of difficult choices and painful truths. I hope it resonated with some of you, and perhaps even made you think about your own boundaries and self-worth. Like this video if you are on my side, if you think I made the right decision. Subscribe for more stories like this, and please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. I'll see you all in the next story.